Question is that the bill be now read the second time. The honourable member for Nelson.
I'll come over this side, Mr President, change of scene, but also just so I can be facing the way I would like to be able to engage with people. I rise to speak on this bill, and it will be a brief contribution because I think other members have covered some territory that I will agree with, and I thank the member for Rumney, the mover of the bill, for a comprehensive second reading speech which covered off of many areas. And I'd like to add to that broader thanks to the Labor Party for bringing the bill to this place for consideration and for the power of work that's involved in doing that. So congratulations to you and to your team, small team, and we all appreciate that that's hard. So thank you. It is an admirable process that seems to have been undertaken in terms of attempts to consult as thoroughly as possible. I'm also going to acknowledge at the outset those tireless advocates on this issue over many, many years, both in the union movement but also amongst families who have got a lived experience of grief at the loss of a loved one in a circumstance of a death at work. And every year when I go to the International Workers' Memorial Day events and hear reflections from people, from family members who have lost a loved one, it's always so affecting. And this year in particular, I don't speak in this place very often about my family, but this year, hearing Guy speak about Matthew, my son this year is 16, and it hits you hard. I can't imagine the strength that's required for families who have been in such grief to stand up again and again and again over years to push for change, not because it will help them and their situation and their grief, but because it might stop other people experiencing the same thing. So I absolutely want to honour that and acknowledge that here. Change happens when people stand up and demand it to happen, and when we do that in a way that is in solidarity with each other. And that's what we're seeing come to fruition today with this bill. Yeah. So I'm honoured to be part of that here in this place. Thank you for the opportunity. Clearly, I support the intent of this bill. It is long overdue. Tasmania is sadly behind all other jurisdictions, as has been mentioned. I think it would have been preferable for the government to not allow Tasmania to be in that position and for this to have occurred ages ago. And for it to be prioritised at a much earlier stage would have been the right message to send and the right outcome to deliver to the Tasmanian community and to Tasmanian families. Having said that, we are here now, and we know that this will be relevant not necessarily to deliver justice to people who have already been impacted, but hopefully to ensure that where this may be necessary in future, justice can be delivered and that accountability can be delivered. But also hopefully the great effect of this legislation passing, if in fact it does today, the great effect will hopefully be in making workplaces safer because a higher expectation is set and a greater consequence is understood to be there, and people will ensure that the risks in terms of safety in workplaces are minimised even further. In essence, I think what we all agree that we're seeking here is that an appropriate outcome of justice is served when incidences happen where there has been a death at work, then somebody has been at fault in that situation. And too often what we see is no particular accountability around that scenario. We've had laws available to us, as others have said quite eloquently, for 100 years now, and yet no one has been held accountable under those laws for deaths in workplaces. Fines have been issued. Companies have had to pay a fine, or there might have been other sorts of consequences. That doesn't feel like justice, and it isn't justice. So what we do want to see now is avenues where justice can be served if necessary, and hopefully will never be necessary, but can be if necessary. I absolutely think we need to be mindful of impact on businesses and workplaces through passing laws that set these expectations and these consequences. And clearly there's an intent that there will be education and support made available and rolled out should these laws pass. That was confirmed for us. And I think that we have always been on a journey under our work health and safety laws of making improvements and setting clearer and higher expectations, and then working to ensure that they can be embodied and implemented and met in workplaces. So this is taking a next step in that exact same journey, adding to our existing work health and safety regime to more explicitly cover these specific instances of industrial manslaughter. It's a really positive step forward. I'm not going to delve into lots of detail in relation to the specifics of the bill. All being well, we'll do that at committee stage, and no doubt there'll be some questions and clarifications that can be put. We're all aware that the government has flagged amendments to be considered during that stage, which have, I think, originated from the DPP. I share with others some frustration that we've had those come at a fairly late stage, and we've had what I would also see as an unsatisfactory explanation and briefing on those proposed amendments this morning. Yet we will do our best here to do our job and to consider those as appropriate when they're brought forward, if they're brought forward. I think that, as I mentioned in my contribution when we were contemplating whether this should be sent to a committee, this bill should be sent to a committee, if indeed the government does feel that this legislation isn't fit for purpose, as they've asserted, then there is always the opportunity. We never have a piece of legislation that has to exist for all eternity in the state that it's in when it passes this place. We always have the opportunity to have either the government or other members of this place come back later with further amendment bills for us to consider, and there's the opportunity to do that too if that's deemed necessary by the government should this pass today and it not include amendments that they have flagged. I appreciate that. I think there's benefit for Tasmania to finally come into that harmonisation with other states, as the member for Murchison rightly pointed out. There are many companies that operate across jurisdictions, and for those companies, Tasmania's feet dragging on this has no doubt left them in an awkward position. I think there's a reason for the comprehensive agreement that there should be national harmonisation here. It's to everybody's benefit for this to occur, and it will represent our shared national understanding that this is an important issue and it is the right thing to do. It will reflect community expectation, and I would absolutely note that that's something this government is very keen to claim in a multitude of other circumstances, that it likes to meet community expectation. So here's an opportunity for the government to come on board and do that very thing on this issue. So on that, Mr President, I'll leave my contribution. I support the bill, absolutely. And I'm interested for us to have the conversations we may have during committee stage on clarifying any elements, considering any proposed amendments, and I look forward, I hope, to seeing this bill passed today. And I thank, again, I just want to reiterate, I thank those who brought the bill and the work that's gone into it, and I particularly thank, though, the advocates in the community and in the union movement who have meant that this is a day that's finally come.
Question is